I just heard today that United States Postal Services Department wants to provide banking services, and there's a nice chart that shows about 30% of US uh, not adequately banked, and that is the question. That is a condition of the United States, which is the most developed country here. So the idea of having a postal bank is not so new. In fact, a lot of countries already have their postal departments providing some banking services, including deposits and short-term deposits and long-term deposit, time deposit schemes, and money transfer schemes. But this idea of pushing for uh, a postal services mechanism, a banking, pushing a banking service access through a postal services mechanism brings to fore few issues. First is that, in essence, what we can think of this as a market failure, so that the commercial banking uh, procedure is not able to service all the customers. So I can understand 5-10% of the customers are not adequately banked because they fall below a certain threshold where it is no longer profitable to do business with those 10%. Even 15% I can understand, but when the figure is 30%, I think something is wrong. The second part of the problem is uh, so second part of the problem is what we think of banks. In effect, we are actually thinking of two things, and this becomes clear when you include postal services, when you even connect postal services and banking, these two diverse things. uh, when we think of banking, we are not only thinking of an institution which helps you track, keep, manage money, but we also need access to that institution. And this access cannot be replaced through, this needs a closer home, a presence closer to the home. And post office is able to um, provide that. Now, the third aspect of it is that banking transaction itself can be looked at as two different transactions. One is the money or payments highway, which is basically keeping your money so that it can be transferred to various purchases, to various reasons, various means where you want to spend it, and that is the payment highway mechanism, and that seems to be a public infrastructure, just like any utility. The second part of banking is basically what you call the investment and lending function. Now, that particular function, the investment lending function, investment as in where you make your time deposits, where you make your saving, where you have your, long-term fixed deposits, term deposits, and things like that, recurring deposits, and lending as in where you borrow from. And this function is a totally different function from the payment highway mechanism. What post office is likely or is intended to do is to provide a majority of the is not to provide the payment highway mechanism, and just to provide some deposit scheme through the post office scheme and through the post office network. Now, I think that is not fully correct way of looking at post office driven banking. I think your mechanism to get so I think what you need to do is post offices should be used to facilitate payment payment highway. They should be complementing the payment highway, and that's why they are increasing the range. They are increasing geographical reach becomes important. The investment part of it, where it is not taken up by private entities, post office is taking it up, and here it is some sort of a reverse insurance. So just like in insurance, you have a really spread out mass which covers the cost. Here is you have a really spread out mass investment of smaller quantum aggregated through a post office scheme, and it should be able to generate as effective rate of return as any mutual fund, and should therefore be able to transfer higher than normal savings rate to its depositors. The second, now coming to the second aspect, we still think that physical presence is important, and I don't see why a commercial bank cannot take up this role. And I thought in US at least it should have taken up far deeper penetration. I can understand in India commercial banks do not want to penetrate to this specific to the rural areas where the access is difficult. But I don't understand why in United States this situation should exist. Which now this brings to light that banking also needs to have some sort of public policy goals. So in India we have some sort of a regulated environment where you have to increase banking penetration. So there has to be additional branches which every bank has to open in rural areas, so as to increase banking penetration. Now I think those goals cannot be taken away by Milton Friedman kind of approach where it doesn't justify. I think in that context banking is similar to airlines, where prime routes are coupled with routes which are not so prime but which are essential for coverage, and where granting access to the population there is one of the goals of while auctioning the premium routes. So in effect, banking and postal services enabled banking is demonstrating something really fascinating, both for how capitalism works, how social goals are to be interspersed with banking, and how banking itself is a sum of two different functions. Thank you.